It's going to talk about where are we going in terms of Nashville Next, because as Michael said, us looking for our future is really critical as we go forward. I also want to just make one comment. I spent the last 4 days in Atlanta at the National Planning Conference, and I spent 1 day of that in a retreat with Southern planning directors. And I will say that almost every Southern planning director that was out there talked about the difficulty of working in their region, lack of coordination, lack of cooperation, and I really felt pretty lonely, because what we have here is really something special, and it goes to really, the congratulations goes to everyone here for making this work. Okay, on Nashville Next, what we are, and you talked about the background and all that, I talked about all that earlier. But basically, the process has gone through a 2-year process. We're in the final year of that. We've gotten down to these 7 fundamental principles that came out of 10,000 people participating in the process in terms of working on these guiding principles. And we're in the process of working on strategies and actions, working under the direction of the committees. And the plan itself is going to have 7 basic elements. We have resource teams that are working on policies and goals that deal with these 7 elements. But what I want to talk about right now is something that we're getting ready to, that came out of a growth mapping exercise where we challenged the community. We're going to grow with 100,000 dwelling units, 200,000 people, and 300,000 jobs, and where do you want those to go? And the community came together and worked on these maps, and as a result of those, we developed 4 scenarios that are going to be released with the details in June of this year, and over the summer is going to be the subject of a lot of discussion between the community in terms of where we're going. Where do we put this? Where do we want this growth to go? And this just illustrates the maps that we did, and we sized the types of development and digitized all that and actually worked our way through that. And we were able to determine where employment, households, and transportation were going based on the regional transportation system and the regional projections. The 4 scenarios that we have, basically there's one that's business as usual, and again, we're in the process of actually quantifying these, but I'll carry you through this one because it's the one that everything's based on. The work that Michael has done and the work that's being done throughout the region is the business as usual scenario. But we are using either the skyscrapers or the Minicozy spikes or whatever to show kind of what business as usual. This is employment growth, and we can zoom in on these, but we'll be providing this information to the public. Population growth under business as usual, and there will be, we're going to be doing several things in terms of showing the detailed congestion and levels under the various scenarios. Michael's talked about the transit vision, how that relates to each scenario. The second scenario is our downtown expands. An awful lot of people thought that it was really good if we just put all the growth in downtown and didn't require any of the growth to go in their neighborhoods. So we're actually modeling that and seeing what that generates. So there will be one with downtown expands and some center development. The third is what we're calling pikes with community centers. That's corridor development, intensification along the pikes, intensification in the centers. And then the fourth scenario is our centers with supportive infill, and that's really the center itself and then the surrounding area around the city, not quite around the center, not quite as much along the corridors. And we're going to be getting that information out to the community, getting the details of that. And each of those we're going to provide information through our resource teams and community engagement team, looking at transportation choices, affordability, environmental quality, and these areas. And what we're going to do is compare the various scenarios one against the other, with the base being really business as usual if we change that. And so you'll be able to say, okay, are transportation choices improving or declining? Are equity issues, household affordability, are they getting better or getting worse under these scenarios? And we're going to have a whole series of ways people can engage us. We're also doing some visualization. This is an extremely early model, and I just haven't been able to put an update in here, where we're taking each of the four scenarios and we're taking a downtown location, we're taking a center location, and we're taking a greenfield location to try and illustrate what the difference would be under the various scenarios. As we move forward, we'll take that information and come out with a preferred alternative. and begin working in the fall on the actual plan itself that is going to the public. One of the major things that I wanted to share with you that we have just finishing up on is a project we're called Retrofitting Suburbia. We were in conjunction with the Greater Nashville Area of Realtors had commissioned both the Georgia Tech planning studio of Ellen Dunn and Jones and T.K. Davis and the Civic Design Center at the University of Tennessee to look at different suburban situations, and these are transferable situations. I think the Board of Realtors nationally wants to be able to use a lot of this information to situations. How do you make suburban locations more livable? And I'm just going to quickly kind of share with you the images you see here was early work that the students did. Last Wednesday, we received kind of the final studio from the UT students, and Friday from the Georgia Tech students, and so we're beginning to incorporate that in. But just how do you take what we have now and make that something that is more livable, more walkable, more conducive to that? And we picked 12 locations. You can kind of see the scattering them. The locations weren't particularly as important as the situations they were dealing with. We had two actually out in Bellevue, but the area across from the Bellevue Mall, how do you make a there? And so the students are looking at that. Or in the Bellevue area, how do you create a town center? There's a corridor out there with an awful lot of public uses. How do you create a town center in that scenario? In the crossings area, how do you establish a walkable mixed-use center as an employment center, a major employment center? We had one in Bordeaux how do you reconnect with the community around an existing Kroger's center. Abandoned big boxes, we've got a lot of those. This is one, Kmart out on Nolensville Road. How do you make change in somewhere like Harding and Nolensville Road? Or the abandoned Lowe's on Nolensville Road. How do you actually connect that or reconnect that with the neighborhood? Old Hickory Village, again, small town. How do you recreate the historic town center? How do you go in and retrofit that? This is the area north by northeast, Trinity and I-65. How do you redevelop that, and how do you make that work? In addition, I didn't have slides on it. We had the area around Centennial Boulevard and the Nations, Bordeaux, Nashville State Community College. If that redeveloped, what would that look like? And then the Woodbine Commercial Core, kind of a historic town core. So those are examples of work that we'll be sharing that with others in the region because we think there's a lot of transferability here. We're going to be asking which of the scenarios the community prefers, and we're going to be doing this in a lot of different ways: online meetings, surveys, public lounges, and then transition that, as I said, into the final. So with that, Bridget, maybe I can get out of your doghouse because I'm now on time and you're back on schedule. So thank you very much.